first pair of speakers I made in my garage when it was minus 25 outside. I spoke to Jeff and, you know, boy, I'd like to keep making speakers, but it gets really cold in the winter. At which point Jeff said, I have some space at the plant. And that's what started this.
There's a thin line between a hobby and an obsession. In Winnipeg, you'll find a huge cross-section of people salvaging, repairing, and collecting vintage stereo equipment. There are others who design and build their own gear from the ground up. Whether driven by nostalgia, a love of music, or passion for industrial design, you don't need deep pockets to experience sonic bliss at home.
His woodworking skills have come way, way up. His quality of his work is phenomenal. Like, we believe in the 10,000-hour rule, where if you master things, Pat is there. So much wood on the inside, creating chambers. The steps here, Pat could have easily just done them as a flat. Each step is a solid step going back. It's glued, and the detail that Pat put into them, the color scheme and the zebra wood just looks so inviting. And the sound is totally amazing. The bass that comes out of these things, wow.
I wouldn't have chosen these colors. But my in-laws, my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law like these colors. I'm more of a natural wood guy. So what we've been using recently to dampen the speakers is wool. I've started printing my own gaskets. I did try lining it with a boot fabric, a very thick boot fabric. I would rather modify something that's good and make it better than spend a lot of money on something that I would be afraid to modify. I tried K-Pock, I've tried polyfill. I've been starting to print my own feet. I need to have feet that I could adjust. So far, wool seems to be the best. For me, the hacking is part of the fun. I decided I would try to do some inlaid work. You know, in some cases, probably would take an expert a few days, probably took me a month. Is it time consuming? Yes. Could you probably buy something that might even sound better? Yes. But is it gonna be exactly what you want? No. Tweeters really don't need any kind of a housing, but I didn't want to have a bare tweeter on the back. So this is made out of solid birch. There's a lot of planning. There are nights my wife says, what are you dreaming about? And without a question, I go to sleep thinking about the woodwork. When you're working with wood, normally you get one chance. Otherwise, you're starting all over. There's quite a few people that actually wanted to purchase these, and I said, no, thank you, they're mine. And when I was 17, I tried building a pair of speakers, which I now know were horrific. And I decided that when I was gonna do this, I looked at the science. If you don't measure, you don't have a base. You don't know where you're starting. You just don't know where to go, right? So measure, listen, measure, listen. Ultimately, listening wins.
Bringing that science brings both sides, right? You have to have both, as Pat said. You gotta have the science and you gotta have the ears. I'm more on the ears side, but Pat's teaching me how to be more on the science side.
The ultimate passion for music is, you know, getting your hands dirty and making something, do it yourself. And then I really enjoy listening to it. But I think I get more out of the build. Mentally, I get more out of the build.
These days, most audiophiles prefer to keep one foot on either side of the fence that separates digital and analog audio nirvana.
Hi-fi lovers like us, a lot of the time we forget to listen to the music and we end up listening to our gear, right? Pick up one that sounds real good. And that's definitely something that someone told me, listen to the music, not to the gear. And that stuck with me. That was a few years ago, and that's how I've been focusing on it now. I've always been a gearhead. I really do like equipment, but before I had good equipment, I was a music lover first. So once I discovered hi-fi and getting in and being able to listen to the music that I love and make it sound the way that I want it to sound, that's what really got me to fall in love with this. My modest beginning actually was I picked up a headset off Facebook Marketplace. to use on my computer, and it wasn't anything crazy. It was like a $25 headset, and I put it on and I was like, whoa. I was hooked. I started listening to music more than I was playing games, and then I was scouring the internet for higher end gear. I was reading reviews. It just evolved. It went from $20 to $200 to $2,000, and I was knee deep, within 6 months of being in that hobby. I have tried vintage gear. I've gone through different vintage gear from different years. What was important to me was finding the sound that I liked rather than what the best sound is on paper. It has arrived today to the speakers behind me right now, which is, as new age and modern as hi-fi speakers really get. You took the old 80s and 70s big chain and stacks of equipment, and you just fused it into these really slim towers. So that's where I ended up, but it took me quite a while to get here. I also wanted it to be very approachable. I wanted someone who comes over to be able to sit down and start working it without ever having to pick up a remote. All they have to do is pull out their phone and they should be able to play music straight through the speakers. The sweet spot is I don't want to let go of the vinyl analog sound. There's no finicking. You put the record on, you click a button, and then it goes. I was not willing to compromise on the sound. That's how I ended up here, and I'm pretty happy with it.
One of the biggest names in audio gained a foothold outside of Japan thanks to the timely travel and vision of a designer from Winnipeg.
It goes back to, I believe, 1957. I was 8 years old. I became entranced with recording audio. I was building a library of all of the theme songs from all the television shows. But I found when my siblings were around yelling and the dog barking that it destroyed all of my audio. So I, at that point, took the thing apart, figured out how to wire alligator clips directly to my parents' Westinghouse TV, and I no longer had interference from my siblings when I was recording. This is a tweeter. It only operates from 6 kilohertz and up, so it's about 1.5 octaves out of the 10-octave range of audio. I'm going to put this in your hand, but you have to be holding it with both hands. I'm Michael Gillespie. I'm the fellow who designed the Fostex Studio monitors back in the late 70s. This is part of what is giving you that imaging that you're hearing. I happened to be in France. I looked up and the billboard said Festival du Son, Sound Festival. It's the world's largest audio show. I saw at the very far end of the convention floor, and they had a couple little objects on the table, a woofer, a tweeter, a crossover component. And I said, do you make all of these things as well? And they said, yes. I was kind of blown away by this. This was the first time they'd ever been out of Japan. And I said, well, I'd like to represent you in North America. And at that moment, I got a 5-year exclusive agreement to do so. All of our products were handmade. All of the production of the complete loudspeakers was done here in Winnipeg for the first couple of years. These are aligned so that if you put a gunshot and they all did this one time, the wavefront here is going to hit you at the same time from all 3. 600 of the top albums over the last years while we were in business were recorded on our monitors. Barbra Streisand, Barry Gibb, the Bee Gees. I have guys who phone me and say, I used your studio speakers in Motown in 1980. Been trying to find a pair ever since, and I'll pay any amount of money. John Mellencamp recorded in Rumbau Studios in California and decided he liked it so much, he had a total, complete copy of their studio built for himself in Indiana. The loudspeakers behind me, the actual transducers, I retrieved when a studio was sold in Franklin, Tennessee. And this particular pair of speakers were used from everybody from Martina McBride to Neil Diamond to Taylor Swift to 36 other artists who worked out of that studio throughout the years. I'm going to put a plaque on these. You know, they were used to record every Taylor Swift up to and including her Red album.